with the cyber physical, so devices, machine can communicate to each other, transfer information, and then of course there's an element of analytics where we can analyze the patterns of the data, everything, and how this actually with the use of AI actually we can do some sort of prediction, forecast, and even to do appropriate interventions to the production line or any means that we talk about in business or production automation and so on. So, so generations in the industrial worlds are much longer now. Lifespans are considerably longer. So this all leads to a constant requirement for the individual to cope with a greater many changes during lifetime. So the sort of to see that such changes actually also pose some sort of challenges and also opportunity for individual, and they have to keep up, and then all the technology actually should be able to support the increasing needs among those people's individuals. So this is just to see from the perspective of imagine the rise of print media. So there's some sort of when we look back the history 100 years ago, for example, there's a lot of paper-based kind of things that we want to use in order to print media to for broadcast, to highlight, to promote or marketing and stuff like that. Or most of them paper-based, manual. So we have seen that uh, for the mass productions of copies of printed work is a bit cheap and quick. It's also fast dissemination or distribution of ideas and uh, sales. So there's a lot of books, physical book, paper-based kind of book printed that people can write down their discovery, knowledge, experiences, and can be easily written and printed and sold to people to get to know about the information and stuff like that. Social changes. So is some sort of provide quick access to literature. It can increase in literacy rates for mass so sales, social policy conflict with employers of unskilled and semi-skilled, so you can distribute or knowledge there easily through the printed mass media. Control of which information people may access comprises a large part of controlling those people. Example, Catholic Church resist interpretation of Bible and so on. Because you have this book, actually easy for people to write down things and then to print it out and to share. Then, when we look into the uh, history of newspapers, I think 20 years back, even before that, um, newspaper, I mean, has been very important. But nowadays, due to the digitalization of things, most of the things you have newspaper, but in digital form. So let me see if I can.
What was there before newspapers? Ever thought about that? Perhaps you've seen how in movies, messengers race back from the battlefield with reports on victories or defeats. Word of mouth was the primary source of spreading the news. Humans exchanged news long before they could write. Merchants, sailors, and travelers brought the news to the continent. Then, peddlers and traveling players picked them up and spread them from town to town. Criers walked through villages announcing births, deaths, marriages, and divorces. But how did the history of newspapers begin? Among the first ones who found a written way to distribute the news were the ancient Romans. Acta diurna, or the daily doings, were created by the government and contained information for the public such as chronicles of events, births, deaths, and daily gossip. These daily doings are considered to be one of the first precursors to the modern newspaper. 1440 was an important year for the publishing world. Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press, and the history of newspapers was influenced significantly. The printing press allowed for the high quality reproduction of printed materials at a rate of nearly 4,000 pages per day. In other words, 1,000 times more than could be done by a scribe by hand. The appearance of the printing press also brought the appearance of the first newspaper. Yes, you've heard me right, the very first newspaper that has ever been published. When? 1609. Where? In Germany. By whom? Johann Carolus. What was its name? Relation you know what? Whatever, you see it on screen. News spread out faster than expected. In a short period of time, all of Europe was populated with newspapers, and they even made their way to the New World, America. On September 25th, in 1690, in Boston, Benjamin Harris published Public Occurrences, both foreign and domestic, the first American newspaper. Everyone thought that they had the liberty to write the news freely and truthfully. Unfortunately, that was not the case. A concept like freedom of press was soon introduced in 1791. You've probably heard about this. The First Amendment in the Bill of Rights guaranteed the liberty of expressing yourself in the U.S. But it wasn't until 2 years later that Thomas Jefferson obtained the freedom of the press, for real and for good. Right after this great achievement, more and more newspapers were published in America. But they were so expensive that only the wealthy ones could buy them. That was only until the 1830s, when technology changed the course of events and made it easier for publishers to print and distribute newspapers. With the help of the penny press, the news became available for everyone. The Sun was the first penny press newspaper in the United States that sold copies for just a penny. The history of newspapers was highly influenced by the Industrial Revolution. Giant presses capable of printing 10,000 papers per hour contributed to the massive growth in the newspaper industry. From 2,526 newspapers in 1850 to more than 11,000 newspapers by 1880. And by 1890, some papers boasted circulation above 1 million copies. Moving on to the early 20th century, when color photographs and other elements such as banner headlines, illustrations, and comics revolutionized the look of the newspapers. Speaking of comics, The Yellow Kid is one of the first U.S. newspaper comic strips that existed from 1895 to 1898 and was a huge success. Though the addition of color made the newspapers even more popular, they started to face serious competition when the radio and television made their debut. News over the radio was immediately available rather than waiting for the next day to wake up and buy the newspaper.
Good evening. Here is the official weather forecast from the United States Weather Bureau at the Cummings Airport.
And then the news formats on television were a lot more engaging when compared to the print or radio because it was something modern and way faster. People were glued to their television sets between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. to catch the latest political, sports, and weather updates. Still, the newspaper continued to be a reliable source to read the latest news compared to the new media. The information was written and detailed, and people could reread the newspaper as many times as they wanted. Fast forward to today. Once again, technology and the appearance of the computer, and most importantly, the internet, was a big game changer. The New York Times and the Wall Street Journal are two old, prestigious newspapers that are still making good numbers selling printed publications. Even if we're living in a high-tech world, there are people who prefer the classic printed newspapers with their morning coffee. But the digital formats of these publications are also very popular. With just a few clicks, you can discover the latest news in the fastest way. The history of newspapers is still being written these days because people will always choose to be updated with the latest news. And with so much technology that surrounds us, everyone can create their own newspaper and express themselves freely. Platforms such as Flipsnack help you create your own newspaper exactly as you want. Populate it with your own content within minutes. Then choose to share it online with friends and family, or print it for the sake of the classic newspaper.
Okay,
What was there before newspapers?
so you have seen actually how the history of newspapers, from the mass printing towards nowadays we have the digital. But the idea that is that when new technologies emerge, so actually that give more opportunity for distributing news that we used to have on newspaper, but with the emergence of radio technologies, TV and stuff like that, so the reliance on newspaper actually has divert towards those sort of media. And even now, even when we relate to nowadays, we have a smartphone and stuff application. So everything that we want to report, news that we want to report, actually in the fingertips, that you can easily access to your application on your smartphone quickly. I didn't have to have physical printed like we used to do before.
Papers. Ever
Sorry.
thought about that? Perhaps you've seen how in movies, messengers.
And then with, now we're going to see in terms of the emergence of the telegraph and telephone. So you can see from the telegraph, and then maybe most of you have not seen the middle part, and before that, where you have the manual kind of telephone that dial up, that you need to you do in order to make a phone call and stuff like that. Then you have a mobile phone in the middle in 90s, and then you have uh, the mobile phone in the smaller or compact versions in 2000s, where you were born. And then nowadays we have everything smartphone, where you have all sort of application can be installed in on your smartphone and got connection to the internet and stuff like that. So if you go back to the history, so we started with telegraph. So it's a means where you want to we they use to communicate to other people over great distances. For the telegraph, so it requires expert operators to encode and decode the messages that you want to send to, let's say you from here to another people in another state and stuff like that. The issue is with the telegraph is that there's limited to skilled operators only that can operate it in order to send message, and of course significant investment on laying the wires, okay, to send a message, stuff like that. Okay. So for a distinguished feature for telegraph, so you have first near synchronicity, so almost instantaneous, but rely on local postal services or personal collection for the last mile connection. And for the privacy, if one trusts the postal and telephone services, then communication can be assumed to be private. However, at least two operators or more in the message is rely have to know the contents of telegram message for its transmission. You know, the one that you want to send to another operator, and then from that, the operator actually can send that message to another people's, or the one who should receive that message. So so digital form of communication, each letter is sent individually using discrete coding system rather than relying on analog variation. Most are in United States, so that actually can improve individual communication, and that's quite such an effect, social effect, if we see in the UK. Okay, so with the telephone, so for the telephone, the initial version, so a single person had to be at the physical location of telephone in order to receive the communication. Let's say, for example, at your house or at your office or at a certain location. So early telephone system needs operator at each exchange to make the appropriate connection. There's operator in between that to connect from the caller to the receiver. So then automatic electrical switching replace the operator lah, to sort of automate the transmission uh, between the caller and receiver. And then there's the development of cell-based mobile phone services which brings the near ubiquity of telephones in home, businesses, and reducing of all calls. So basically, um, at the home offices and stuff. So we can what so that put cell-based mobile phone. So the text messaging capabilities of pages inspire mobile phone operating companies toward an accidental killer application sort messaging service. So when you have this sort of mobile phone, so it's not necessary that you have to be stationed to a certain location like before. Like so you have a physical phone at home office, but now whenever you are actually you can actually with this cell-based mobile phone, then easily for you to what we call that connected to other people remotely. And of course the things that when you look at this that there's a means that you can easily send short messages services. So at that time it's very limited, so it's not like nowadays you have lengthy of there's no such limit, but at that time there's a very short message that you can deliver at a time and at a certain cost that you have to pay lah, for a certain amount, or that limits the how much this therefore you have to some sort of very selective when you want to send short message to protect your credits or being everything lah. So okay, so you can see there's a what we call that revolution of the telephone, and then move to the cell mobile phone, and the latest one you have this smartphone. So with SMS, short messaging system, a culture of using abbreviation has grown up. So this is another um, implication or impact that we can see where we tend to use abbreviation quite a lot more often. I think one of the reason is that you need to some sort of be selective, or you want to make it fast. But if we look at 20 years back, it's more about saving, reducing the cost, or control the cost that you want to bear if you send lengthy messages. Therefore, you have to use some sort of abbreviation, short form, something like that, in order to deliver your intention or your message to the other part. So issues, health risks from prolonged and regular use of mobile phones, disturbance of sleep among teenagers and children because they do not switch off phones, and disturbed by incoming call messages, phone alerts in cinema, theaters, lecture hall, distracted others. So these are some sort of the downside of having a mobile phone or smartphone, particularly nowadays where everything actually through smartphone. So there's a tendency that people look at the phone for a long time, and due to this maybe it will affect the lifestyle, for example in terms of um, amount of sleep that they have, because they are glued to have this application on their smartphone and so on, that difficult to be what call that uh, you know what call that difficult for you to get rid of your application if something that you access most of the time. So this affect the health, the sleep, quality of sleep, and so on. And of course, just now I mentioned about not before, like 20 years back, or even 30 years back, it's very limited that how much message that you can send, because if you send very lengthy message, of course it will increase your cost that you have to bear. And, for a one-time message for a certain character, you have to pay 20 cents, for example. Then imagine that how much, if you compare nowadays, how much a very lengthy text that you can simply send free, for example. So that makes the communication prolonged, and therefore it affect your other lifestyle. So this is just to show web tools graph, how we move from PC era, which is in between 1980s and 1990s. And then you have web 1.0, and then you move on to a generation where you were born, web 2.0. You have towards web blog, social media, and then you have semantic search, keyword search, and stuff like that. And for the technology side, the bold one is like technologies that have emerged, existed. For example, in 90s, between web 1.0 and 2.0, actually the emergence of VR, HTML for hypertext markup language for you to create website, Java, XML, JavaScript, and so on. So, and then moving on to what we call that, web 3.0. Okay, between in the past 10 years. So you have some sort of deep search. And then nowadays we are talking more towards what we call that, web 4.0, this decade. You are talking about from semantic web, you're talking about the web OS system. Then you have intelligent personal agent, stuff like that, where that can some sort of analyze your behavior, your patterns, everything, and then do personalized kind of recommendation, stuff like that to you. So when we look at the web 4.0, okay, so as you can see that we are moving towards what we call that, natural language search. Natural language search, semantic search, to and then reasoning. Okay, so it's some sort of we are moving towards intelligent web. You know, if you go back way before web 1.0, 2.0, so you have like certain aspect. We're talking about keyword search and stuff like that. But now we are moving towards um, interpreting easily your communication, and can relate it to what your intention is, what you're feeling, what your emotion, and then therefore from your behavior, your interaction with the web, the content that you post, actually there's technologies, algorithm, AI in particular, can understand, analyze it, and then therefore can feed you with respective contents or things that might be relevant to you, and so on, rather than they make you aware of what you're doing, what your pattern is, and feed you with the related information. There's people to join. Okay, no, sorry. Okay, moving on, we are talking about the rise of broadcast media, digital media. So, broadcast media were originally heavily regulated in most countries. You know, what sort of things that you can post and to be filtered and to be shared and publicized and something like that. So it's quite a very heavily regulated lah. So there's rules and so on. Part of the reason for this was purely technical. Analog transmission requires a broadband of clear space around it to prevent cross-channel interference. Right? So it means that is something that control in order to use the broadband to broadcast the media or information to public. Okay, so although radio transmission and reception uh, over the more than centuries in its introduction, such advances have been very small incremental changes. The basic technology remains pretty much the same for the broadcast. um, so nowadays we seen that broadcast digital radio become reality. There has been a slow growth of both digital and audio broadcast. So nowadays you can, instead of the manual one, the radio transmission one, but now you can, with the digital platform, is now actually easily for you to listen to the digital radio application. So we can see that more people listen to digital radio channel via satellite television equipment, rather than have a physical what we call it, radio and stuff like that. We use radio transmission nowadays. You just can easily listen to a digital application or radio through your smartphone, for example. All right. Uh, all right. Can you give 1 minute? Check. Okay, thanks. I'm going to continue. Okay, now we are talking about quite more relevant to your generation, where you see the rise of the computing industry, which covers various technologies. So, for example, you can see cloud computing, and then you have robotics, IoT, Internet of Things, and sometimes maybe you have heard IoE, Internet of Everything. And then you have big data. Big data has been like quite some sort of trend lah in the last 5 years, 10 years. And then you have Industry 4.0, cyber security, AR, augmented reality, and so on. Mixed reality, and so on. Automation. So, machines for tabulating large amounts of statistical information. So, when we have this, actually, the computing can be to process huge amount of data or informations and to make sense of it. So, machine for small numbers of other specialized tasks such as cryptography, you know, to decode the convention or something. Pharmaceutical industry use it to calculate efficient chemical supply, logistic, first big killer application, airline sales, personal competence. So these are the things that how actually we leverage on the computing industry actually to process data, huge amount of data, to secure our information, to cryptography, decipher and cipher code everything, and then to tracking things, supply and so on. So that has made all these things, of course, many more, even easy and useful for people to do such things. Okay, let me see this.
The history of the computer dates back to the 1800s, when many scientists began to develop various computing machines. However, the modern computer was developed in 1930s when Conrad Zuse created the first programmable computer, the Z1, which could do additions and subtractions very quickly. In 1941, he created the Z3, known as the world's oldest digital computer. Unfortunately, the computer was destroyed during World War II, but later in 1950, Conrad Zuse used the Z4, the world's first commercial digital computer. Another important moment in history and evolution of the computer was also in 1941, when J.V. Atanasoff, a physics and math teacher, and his student Clifford Berry designed a computer that could solve 29 equations simultaneously. However, Atanasoff-Berry computer was the first computer capable of storing data in its memory. In 1944, the Harvard Mark I Colossus was inaugurated, a huge computer that occupies an entire room. It was used during World War II to break the complex Lorenz ciphers used by the Nazis. Colossus offered immediate solutions, and it's believed that it significantly shortened the duration of the war. Another computer that stood out at the time was ENIAC, created by John Matchley and Presper Eckert. The computer was created for ballistic analysis used by the military during World War II. ENIAC occupied a room of 1,500 square meters, weighing 30 tons, and had 6,000 switches and 18,000 vacuum tubes. A few years later, the two built UNIVAC, the first commercial computer for business and government applications. Another important step in the evolution of computers was the time when transistors replaced vacuum tubes. Thus, in 1953, the first prototype computer with transistors was created, Manchester TC. In 1953, Grace Hopper developed the first computer language called COBOL. At the same time, IBM created its first computer called IBM 701. In the early 1960s, IBM launched the 7000 series of mainframe computers that use transistors. The 7030 model, also called Stretcher's Autodisk series, with 9 such computers being sold to scientific laboratories. The technologies used for this computer led to the development of the IBM 360, IBM's most successful series of computers. Slowly, the evolution of the computer was approaching what we know today to be. In 1965, Program 101 was the first desktop computer sold to general public. It cost $3,200, was the size of a typewriter, had 37 keys, and a built-in printer. At the same time, the world's first 16-bit commercial microcomputer, the DDP-116, was developed and sold for $28,500. The year 1970 is marked by Intel, which launches Intel 1103, the first dynamic access memory chip, DRAM. A year later, IBM invented the floppy disk, which allows data to be shared between computers. Now, who hasn't heard of Altair 8800? It was launched in 1975 and used the basic programming language developed by Bill Gates and Paul Allen. Altair 8800 was a very popular computer, being the model that invented the term personal computer. In 1976, Apple appeared on the computer market with the Apple I, the first computer with a single circuit board and ROM, to which you had to add a keyboard, a power supply, and a case. A year later, they launched Apple II, which was a great success. It was an 8-bit computer and came with a switching power supply, keyboard case, manual, game paddles, and a box containing the Breakout game. In 1981, IBM launched the first IBM PC, officially known as the IBM Model 5150. It was based on a 4.77 MHz Intel 8088 microprocessor and used a Microsoft MS-DOS operating system. This was the computer that revolutionized the development of computers, being cloned on a large scale and thus generating the creation of so many softwares and peripherals. Apple launched Apple Lisa in 1983, the first personal computer to have a graphical user interface. It had a drop-down menu and icons, a Motorola 68000 microprocessor, 1 MB of RAM, a 12-inch black and white monitor, dual floppy disk drives, and a 5 MB hard drive. A year later, Apple introduced the Macintosh. the first successful computer mouse with a graphical user interface and based on the Motorola 68000 microprocessor. In 1984, Michael Dell created PCs Limited, where he created the first self-designed computer called Turbo PC. In the early 1990s, Dell was one of the leading computer developers. In 1987, IBM released Personal System 2, the first IBM system with the Intel 80386 chip. The computer also came with the new operating system, OS2, which for the first time allowed users of a mouse for IBM computers. The 1990s were marked by innovation introduced by Apple. Their new iMacs, the 1998 G3, came with clear, customizable case. It was sold for $1,300 and included a 4 GB hard drive, 32 MB RAM, a CD-ROM, and a 15-inch monitor. Apple also marks the 2000s. In 2003, it launched the Apple G5, the most powerful Macintosh to date. The computer had anodized aluminum case and was named the first true 64-bit personal computer. So, in the 1990s, with the advent of the internet, personal computers began to be widely used in all fields. Gradually, computers evolved drastically, both in terms of design and performance. Thus, the market for computer components began to grow more and more, with users being able to create their own PC system according to their own needs. Moreover, it is incredible how from computers that occupied an entire room and performed very simple actions, technology has come to offer us today very small PCs such as the Apple Mac Mini desktop PC system, which offers very high performance when working or doing a gaming session. So we have all the evidence that technology is not standing still, but constantly evolving from day to day. What do you think computers will look like in the coming years?
Okay, just that is just to show quickly the revolution of computers from the wireframe to nowadays where you have high spec of computers that you have seen now. So in terms of social impacts, so when we look at job market, so actually it has created huge opportunities. So we need to have more programmer because everything is like to develop the computers applications, and then for the job market in terms of the operator of complex machines computer, white collar employment, must develop basic computer skill, and new industry personnel and business computing training. So these are the things that has sort of uh, emerged. So due to this such a huge impact of the emergence of the computers and PC and stuff like that. Then okay, so before I proceed this, so you can take five, grab a coffee or juice, whatever, and then we are going to continue. We take five, and then we continue with the remaining one. Okay, okay. Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much for staying with me. So I'm going to continue again. Okay, next, the rise of the content industry. Okay, so nowadays we can see that there's a content industry has experienced a quite huge transformation. So it's kind of like a dominant force in the nowadays economy. Of course, with the platform that you have, digital platform that you have, uh, so the explosion of user-generated content and growing demand for entertainment information, and this has actually contributed to such a growth, the growth of personal or digital contents. So it's like no longer that the content actually uh, based on what has been published on website or media, digital media broadcast, but now it's like something that move towards the individual. So actually individual the platform, for example social media, for example, actually provide the platform opportunities for individuals, not talking about the uh, broadcast media or organization and stuff like that, but individual at their level actually can be part of the things that can create digital content that can be published and shared across the within the platform to their network, his or her network. Okay. um Sorry, any okay. So digital revolution accessibility. So in this part, so it's quite vital here. The digital has played important roles in the rise of the content industry. So with what we call that, ecosystem in terms of the high speed internet, broadband, fiber optic and stuff, with the smartphone. You know, nowadays everyone got one, two, even three smartphone, smart devices, and alongside with the platform applications, social media. So this actually provide the ecosystem that has grown the or empower or enable individuals to leverage on this to publish as much as their contents. You know, every day, imagine each of us can easily produce short videos, media, audio, and stuff like that, or not just blog. We're talking about 20 years of blog or something, but now it's like digital contents that people might look forward to know updates about a certain things, about a certain event, or about a certain individual so easily. They themselves actually can be part of the ecosystem in uh, news to share those sort of information. And it's not just but that is also about what, of course, when you talk about digital contents, about personal lifestyle or about their hobbies, interests, skills, or knowledge and stuff like that. So people can easily create their own, share over the platform. So we see that's the shift in consumer behavior. So in this context, we can see that the consumer behavior has experienced a significant shift with a growing preference on demand and personalized content. Means that is some things that what's of it's like a more kind of like content that you can design on your own or based on your interests, based on your segment, based on your network, or based on your specialties and stuff like that. So you can have your own way of doing all those things and you can publish it easily, quickly. So traditional media outlets are facing stiff competitions from streaming services, online publication and social media influencers. So let's say before this, like 20 years back, we strongly rely on the traditional media outlets, to look for information, to look for the updates, content. But nowadays, we are kind of like moving towards the other um, um, way, like you have streaming live, social media influencers, everything that we rely on those kind of sources. Mhm. So publication of books and films require more people with different skills in order to supply the demand at affordable level. Various compromises are made. Law enforcement, example copyright, acceptance of advertisement during TV program. Okay. So when you look at the this concept where you have some sort of advertisement, um, this is source of way of to find television broadcast, with such fees from the advertisement. So that actually help the broadcast agency or organization to sustain. So in some TV programs, advertising dictates the story format for TV shows. Different between made for television movies and made mode for cinema movie is the obedient to advertising slot by providing mini climaxes or cliffhangers to keep the viewers watching the program through the advert break. It's like stories in between. You have like sort of advertisement, and for TV you have certain sort of types of advertisement to be shown at that time. So to something like determine sort of contents, TV shows, what sort to be displayed. So critics of the translation of story between media. Okay, so this, as you can see, so you have yeah, uh, so- okay, so you have you have okay, so critics of the translation of stories between media. So okay, so here you can see movie, novel, vice versa, computer games, and then you see in this context, Spider-Man comics, Spider-Man cartoon TV, Spider-Man novel, Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man, and so on. Okay, which version is the original? There are too many versions and reinterpretations. So there, of course, there are various media. So so these some things like different stories that made based on different sort of media. So then which one is the original one, or which one that is the authentic one? So these some things that can be questions due to such contents that can be made easily by anybody and or edited. Okay, so for this is just to show that how impactful that social media is, in terms of how much time actually people, within when we talk about the average of the worldwide and the countries how much time that they spend. So you can see that, for example, in this context, you have the Philippines, and you have Japan, the least one. So we can see that how much time actually, in hours and minute, that internet users age 16 to 64 spend using social media on any device. Okay, so it is quite a huge amount of time on average that can we can see. So therefore, with such quite amount of time that people spend on social media, actually, some things that can be opportunities for individual, for organizations, and business, for example, to leverage on this in order to reach the targets of the users, and from this portion of time that they spend on their social media. Uh, Okay, so when we look at the internet, so yeah, it has been existed for over 30 years. Yeah. So so it really emerged into the consciousness of the general public in the late 90s lah. So I think at that time, in 90s, where you have Yahoo, Netscape, Navigator, you can see that. So those are the what call that browser that people use at that time. And then nowadays, you can see in this such quite a decade of timeline what actually emerged throughout that periods of the emergence of the internet. Okay. um, so with that internet as well, so you can see that um, there are some sort of company leverage on this actually has made quite a lot of uh, profitable from this what we call that internet. So one of the most successful is dot com company to date is you can see what we call that Amazon. So starting out as a US online bookseller, and nowadays it has been a sort of franchise out to many countries, and then now has branched out into providing various other types of goods with different mix of each country. It's not just like a book or something. Um, and then, as you can see, with this such internet and website, so airline agency have, for example, in this case, have also benefited from the web. So for example, you can nowadays easily, or user can easily search for a flight ticket and do themselves the booking. But if we look back at 20 years back, so for such thing, it didn't happen, where of course the user have to manually go to the physically go to the travel industry or agency in order to look for a flight or book for a ticket and stuff like that. But nowadays, it's in your comfort. You can easily do such booking, online booking. So, and then you can see that for what we call that e-ticketing. So you can do it easily online, and nowadays you can even check in online. So those are the things that has changed dramatically. So it's some sort of like moving towards paperless. So there's no such a physical ticket that you have. But nowadays, everything you can have digital, in the digital form, where you can just scan it in order to check in or to get entrance and so on. So we can also see the sort of online options. So it can make use of the many natures of the web. So something that easily people can do the auction and flexibly do the bid, what called to bid for such things in auction. For eBay, so it provides a mechanism for trusting other sellers without paying for expensive payment and delivery system. Okay. So of course there are many more examples that we can look for how the internet actually impacted our um, social communication, daily life, and how we used to do things in 20 years back has changed nowadays lah. Um, okay, next we are going to see in terms of conversion. When we look from the content producers and this distributor perspective. So example of conversion, so content production and distribution companies. So companies that produce content for TV or web and the TV station, what call that, ISP themselves. So for example, in this context, why and Netflix needs to merge. Okay, so you can see that with such local broadcast satellite TV, of course they have limited programs. With Netflix, such a uh, that can offer a lot more TV programs or shows. So that's what we call that, the opportunities to merge, to collaborate in order to at the end of the day to have a win-win situations that can benefit the audience or the people who subscribe for it. You know. Okay, now we can see this sort of video game production, which can be uh, considerably costly and uh, quite risky business. To ensure that the because for video game, of course, you are talking about the graphics, the logic, the game itself, 3D design, everything, graphics. So a very complicated program interface for games. So console manufacturers encourage third-party publishers and developers to create game for their consoles. So console itself will meaningless. So without such contents in this concept games that need to be created in order to enable the such console what we call it, devices can be what we call that relevant and related to use for you to use it to play the games. In order to maintain the revenue stream from games, so they require publishers to submit their games through quality assurance tests run by the manufacturers, and then you need to pay some sort of licensing fee in order to get proper encryption codes which allow the games to be loaded onto the console. So such as another side provide hardware to create another side is like focusing on the content, which in this content the game itself, that what we call that need to be developed, program, and then to publish it on or loaded onto the console to be played by the users. Yeah. So some remaining tensions, since manufacturers are also developers and publishers of their own game, the quality control process being used to gain an advantage in the games market, particularly where similar games are due to be released by both the manufacturers and third party developer around the same time. So the computer games industry now grosses more revenue than cinema. It's just to show that with such mobile devices, everything's, you can make it easy for the user to load or to play, install the game, and at anywhere, anytime that they want. So as compared to what we call that, context where you really need to rely on console or PC, to be stationed at a certain location. So with such a mobile devices, so that has made these video game industries growing even bigger. And people or users can easily access to it on the go wherever they are to play the games. Converge. Okay. Let me see between the horizontal and vertical integration. Okay, so in this context, as you can see, that companies quite often seek to expand profits. How? By moving into other areas normally, usually related fields. Lah. So, for example, in this context, we can see that Microsoft moved into video game console market with Xbox. Okay, so it's not just like having um, software for you to do office things, something like that. But Microsoft has leveraged on this potential game actually by having their own what we call that, console, in order to leverage on the games, in what we call the potential opportunity for the games. Mobile phone come pretty evolved in the home entertainment electronic market. Good standard entertainment market, so you can have the way that you used to have on with the Microsoft software. You can also have it to be integrated or embedded on your TV screen. So for certain conditions, so it can be more difficult for large organizations rooted in one field to move into a new field than for an entirely new enterprise to enter that same market lah. So this actually because of the organization itself, uh, initial and mistaken expectation within the original company. So how you move from one to another is not that simple. So basically, there are so many considerably of and so on. However, so you can see in terms of other successful market sector integration. So here you see that Google emerging into what we call the access provision field. So with their municipal Wi-Fi contract with city of San Francisco. Nestle original business was based on milk and dietetic foods for children, grew and diverse its market into other what we call that kinds of products. For example, in this case, you have Lactogen, Nescafe, Maggie, and so on. Genting Berhad, starting out with Genting Highland Resorts, grew into uh, plantation, power generation, oil and gases, exploration and production. So actually, when we look at this, actually, um, we can see that how such original business that a particular company organization has moved to another business that can be potentially in demand in next 5 years and so on. So therefore, that's other companies as some sort of what we call that diversify to integrate with other fields that not wasn't their original products or services. So as you can see here, there are what we call vertical and horizontal integration. So if a vertical integration occurs when a company acquires a company or asset at different part of the supply chains. Okay. Horizontal integration occurs when a company consolidates with the acquisition of company or asset at the same points of the supply chain. So when you see that vertical ones, so actually you can move or explore different sort of part of the segment in the supply chain, But when we talk about um, horizontal integration, is seen within the what we call that the same supply chain part of the supply chain. Okay, but rather you you try to acquire different set of asset, but they are all within the same supply chains of line, which in the context manufacturers line. So when we look at the conversion in within horizontal integration, actually it can reduce the numbers of players in the marketplace or merge two related marketplace. So for example, in this context, there are many market players, 10 or something like that, the same line. But with such horizontal integration of the same supply chain in the industry, so actually it can make uh, very significant ones maintain or remain. So for example, in this context, you have merger between recently Celcom and DG. Okay, and then you were both within the same what we call that supply chain. Then you have IBM Computer Division, which acquired by Lenovo. So these are also the same line of chain from merchant to consumer to gain control over their industry value change. So for instance, so you have Samsung is manufacturing OLED for its uh, smartphone. Okay. And then Apple is having its own retail store for selling its product. So rather than manufacture solely manufacturing the what we call it, the computer smartphone, but then you having what we call that retail store you have another set of supply chain that actually can help you in not just manufacturing but also to do some sort of retailing and stuff like that. So that is some things that can what we call reduce the cost, and of course you can cut the cost lah within the what we call it the same a different supply chain but within your control. So for this, so I mentioned just now how it can improve the efficiency. So of course it can reduce the cost. So and then quality control. So within everything is within your budget. It's good to another boundary, so the reliable or different supply chain. And we can see also in terms of the competitive advantage, where um, it can provide companies with a competitive edge by enhancing their market position. So, for example, by controlling key stages of the value chain, company can differentiate themselves from competitors, and therefore they can respond more also quickly to market changes and have greater flexibility in pricing, distribution, and product development because they control most of the supply chain. And therefore, they are easy to make flexible and control, although at different supply chains. So they are also within what we call within the market. Therefore, they make it very competitive to control the market price. If without such an integration, of course, it's quite challenging to control this sort of price because it's beyond their control. So that it control which pricing everything. Um, Integration one. So we can see there are benefit in terms of the market power. Industry. So it's by acquiring or merging with competitors, for example, telecommunication services. So actually, you can make it strong, and then you can eliminate the other competitors because everything has been merged into the same companies in order so you can have a stronger power to bargain for suppliers, customers, and even stakeholders lah. Okay, so this can lead can improve, enhance the for the company to gain advantages, sharing, diversification, risk mitigation, vertical. So it can increase what we call that cost and complexity. So for vertical integration, it can lead to increased cost and complexity in managing multiple stages of the production process. So company may need to invest in additional resources, infrastructure, and expertise to handle the integrated operation. It can also result in lost economics of scale in the company not able to efficiently utilize its integrated assets. Because when you try to venture into other segment of supply chain, so of course you need to have the platform, the environment ecosystem in order to support such supply chain. So due to this, actually, that you need to venture into other um, um, complexity that you need to tackle as well, which compared to the previous one where you at the same supply chain. So therefore, you have some to invest into it and might face some sort of risk okay lack of flexibility, adaptability, risk of inefficiency and dependency. So for vertical integration, it can create a risk of inefficiency if the company too effectively manage and optimize its integration and expansion. So if you're focusing on manufacturing front, it will be quite simple and straightforward, and of course there will be different segment of supply chain. So you have to invest on it, and then of course it's quite difficult for you to maintain the effectiveness at every level, because it's something that is perhaps beyond what you used to, where you focus on manufacturers. So therefore, okay, so it can contribute to the efficiency lah, and risk of independency. Um, okay, for disadvantage or okay, and then we can see also we talk about digitizations. So it's all about how you move or change from the analog information or content into digital format. So how you move it? So of course you need to have like computer software and so on in order to convert all the analog kind of contents into the digital forms. So for example, in this case, it involves the conversion of physical objects such as text documents. You have, let's say, manuscript, you have images and recording at libraries or your archive. So you want to convert it into a digital form. Okay, so in order for you to you make use of it, and then to publish or uh, to store or maintain the detail or data of that manuscript or images and so on. Okay. No, no, okay. So if you are talking about what are the terminologies used, so if you can see here, so you have digitizations. It's more towards like converting, changing from analog form to digital form lah. So you have all the information, media,